Arizona, Colorado, Indiana, Michigan, New Jersey, Tennessee, and Virginia. WynnBET is now live in all these states, and the excitement of Wynn Las Vegas has finally landed in online sports betting and casino play. From boosted parlays to live in-game odds on everyday major sports, WynnBET gives you the tools to win. Sign up today for your risk-free $1,000 sports bet. Download the WynnBET app or visit wynnbet.com to start winning. The Timeline is a Blue Wire podcast.
I mean, a little bit of both. You know, it makes it feel a lot better going through what we went through. And, you know, I did a lot more years at the bottom than he did. So we turned around quick for DA. But, yeah, man, you can't take this for granted. We always say, you know, on this streak, especially, when we say, you know, we got 12 straight. It's hard to get one in this league. You know, we emphasize that a lot. You know, it's the best of the best. It's the NBA. You know, so you can't ever take any opponent or any win for granted.
Welcome to The Timeline, a Phoenix Suns podcast. My name is Mike. I'm here with Sam. Sam, 13 games in a row. The Phoenix Suns are on their longest win streak since 2006-2007. How you feeling?
The streak continues, baby. I was a little bit worried at certain points tonight. I'm not going to lie. They definitely made the fans sweat for it a little bit there at the end. There was after at the very end of the game, after Chris Paul had a turnover and then Book, when they forced the jump ball and it became a one-possession game just for like 2 seconds, I was like, oh shit, here we go. Because that's kind of my biggest fear at this point. It's stupid to say, but like I just don't want to lose. Eventually the Suns are going to lose a game. We don't know when it's going to be. Eventually they'll lose a game. Although as much as I would love to go 79-3, I suspect that eventually it'll happen. I just don't want to do it in like comically terrible fashion. So we'll see. I guess there's no good way to lose a game, but the point is they were able to pull it out tonight. I thought also, we recorded recently. It's only been a few days, not a full week.
Yeah.
But 3 games have happened in the last 4 nights. They pulled out all 3 games. And I think we saw a bunch of patterns, like even some contrasting stuff compared to what we were just talking about a few days ago. That was kind of interesting.
Yeah, I agree. For those of you who haven't heard it, I know it was a late episode last week. I highly recommend going back and listening to that one because we looked at some stats for the entire season so far that gave a good picture, I think, of what we are looking at from the Suns in the first 13, 14 games. And then now, of course, 3 more games, and we're already seeing some changes. First of all, and for those, if you're confused, we're recording this immediately after the Spurs game. So that's what we just saw. And I think, Sam, you're right, because like going into this game, it's like, of course the Suns should beat the Spurs, but there's like that nagging Greg Popovich feeling that Suns fans still have that's hard to get rid of. So I was a little worried too. And they pulled it out. And they played really well. A weird box score. I'm going to just point this out right from the top, and then we'll get into some of the trends. But leading the Suns in assists tonight, do you know who it was?
Well, I happen to be looking at the box score. So.
Landry Shamet.
Yeah.
How weird is that?
Yeah.
None of the starters had more than 5 assists in this game, which is very odd. And it turns out that Shamet, who I didn't even really notice his playmaking in this game, ended the game with 5 assists, which is the most on the Suns.
I didn't really notice his playmaking either in this game. I'm not going to lie. I think the Suns were a bit uncharacteristically sloppy with the ball in this one. 15 turnovers is not typical Suns basketball for what we're used to at this point, but you still see in the box score 25 assists. This team could sleepwalk to 25 assists at this point, and it's really not something that's all too difficult for them to do, and you don't even need to get Chris Paul's regular level of production to get there. You get a few assists here from Devin Booker, obviously, but then also Landry Shamet, Cam Payne, Mikal Bridges, even DeAndre Ayton tonight, and it adds up eventually. Yeah, so that was strong for sure.
Yeah, it's a fascinating team in this 13-game win streak because obviously they're a great team, but it's not like they're not playing in a way that like one guy is just elevating them above the rest. It's not Devin Booker averaging 35 points a game for the stretch of 10 games or something like that.
You know, it's funny because I don't know. This was my take in the first half of this game on Twitter, and now after the second half of this game, you ended this game, you gave up 111 points. So I'm not sure if it necessarily holds anymore. But at least for the first half of this game, right? There was one point the Spurs were on pace for like 85 points in this game, like at some point in the second quarter. And the defense just looked really, really strong. And even in the second half, I think part of where the defense fell apart was coinciding with that being sloppy with the basketball that I was talking about. It was a transition defense problem. It wasn't necessarily a half-court defense problem. They did have some issues stopping Devin Vassell, DeJounte Murray as we went on in the game.
Just penetration in general.
But what I'm going to say, like, the Suns scored 115 points tonight, and this is something that has not changed since we recorded last week, which is that offense, another thing we saw from them in the past few games, a 48-point quarter, Mike. We saw a 48-point quarter from the Suns. But it's wild. This offense, like, it's good. It's not that good. It's like, you know what I mean? Like, and that's not an insult to this team. They've won 13 in a row. But they've won 13 in a row on the backs of a top 5 defense in the NBA, a top 3 defense in the NBA. Yeah. And even though they ended giving up 111 points to the Spurs tonight, I really think that's been the main story here. Their offense, you know, as we come up on these games, I think next week we're going to preview the games against the Warriors because they'll have 2 games against the Warriors in the next week. I hope they win the next few so that we can have just a totally awesome matchup going into that with like riding a 16 or 17 game streak at this point or at that point.
Yeah.
But the Suns offense, like, they continue to give chances to teams they should not give chances to, and then it all works itself out in the end because we know this is an incredibly clutch team in the fourth quarter behind Booker and Paul. They pick their spots really well. They kind of kill you. It's death by 1,000 cuts, but they don't have that intimidation factor of, say, a Curry Warriors team where it's like, oh, Booker has 40 points and it's the third quarter and the Suns are up by 50 already, and there's just there's that feeling of helplessness, like there's nothing you can do. Their offense is good. It's clicking for sure, and there's one guy in particular I think we really need to talk about on offense because he's figuring things out, so I want to talk about him after this. But their offense still feels like it's only running at 85%.
Yeah,
their defense is really carrying them throughout the streak.
And I even think the defense is still not quite there yet. It just doesn't feel just right yet. And I think it'll still get better throughout the season. And look, 13 games in a row. Obviously, they're playing very well. 48-point first quarter. By the way, they only made 2 more threes the rest of that game. They're 8 for 10 from 3 in that game, and then made 2 more in the second, third, and fourth quarter combined against the Nuggets. And you know, that's just not clicking exactly right. And shots are shots. Like, it's one thing to make shots, whatever. Like, sometimes they fall, sometimes they don't. Over the course of a regular season, it's difficult to measure a team's success on that alone. What you're looking at really is the quality of shots that the Suns are taking. And right now, I'd say they're taking really, really good shots. We'll transition to what you want to talk about, but I want to just bring up something just to remind you and just to remind people listening to this podcast what happened in this last offseason. The Phoenix Suns did not extend DeAndre Ayton. They didn't. And, you know, there was a lot of talk as to whether or not that was a good decision or whatever. I have actually found it to be relatively interesting that the tact that some national media members have had in discussing that, they've been more open to discussing whether or not it was a good decision, and they're not necessarily killing the Suns like I expected. But having said that,
kind of hard to kill a team that just keeps winning, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, at the same time, it's just like, did they make the right choice? They're still winning, and they have the guy on the team. So.
Sure.
But one thing I said to you is what's really, really, really important for this team is that through their coaching and through their management with James Jones, they communicate exactly to DeAndre Ayton what he needs to do this season in order to be what they envision a max center is. Because from James Jones's perspective, he said it in public. He said, I just didn't believe he was a full 5-year max player. And to be honest, that's the right thing to say if you're not going to give him the contract. You have to be honest about it, and you have to approach him and say, I don't believe you are now. I believe you can be. Here's what you need to do in order to do that. So there's small things that DeAndre Ayton needs to do in order to do that. We've talked about it a lot in this podcast, whether or not he can. We believe he can. It's just about whether or not he will. What we've seen in the last few games, to me, has been the most promising stretch of DeAndre Ayton's career with the Suns so far.
Regular season.
And I believe,
I think,
regular
right?
season, of
Yeah,
course.
yeah.
Even beyond that. Because to me, it's not necessarily, it's not necessarily about the production, right? It's about the skills. It's about what he can do, not what he did do. If he can do some of the things that he's showing us, that makes a massive difference towards the future. It's more promising. I think a lot can be said about...
I understand what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. What I'll just say is him like showing up in the playoffs and doing what he did there on that stage was the most surprising. Like, that was the biggest statement he could have made, and is more of a statement than what he's doing now. But to your point, and I think what you're trying to get to, so I'll shut up in a second, like the things that he's showing us, what he's on the cusp of developing, that's more interesting, right?
Right. And what we're talking about is what we've seen in these last few games is an intent to roll on pick and rolls and roll hard, which is very important to this team, whether or not he catches the ball. But also, on the last episode, I talked extensively about the Suns just not trusting him with the ball in some scenarios, and rightfully so. But like, if you believe that DeAndre Ayton can be a max player in the future, you have to give him the ball within the Suns offense in some scenarios to see if he's capable of doing the things that you believe a max player can do in those scenarios. And they started to give him the ball in the short roll, and he's done. He's attacked the basket. He's found shooters. He's drawn fouls in that scenario. He's making smart decisions. The floater still doesn't quite look right, as you talked about, not quite leading to free throws. But like, there's more than one thing that he's doing in that scenario, which is huge. We saw him catch the ball in the post and fake right and then turn over his left shoulder and get fouled immediately, something that he almost never has done. And then in this last game against the Spurs, he caught it in the short roll, on the move, pass faked to the corner, and then dunked, and he caught it a good 17, 18 feet away from the basket to be able to create space himself with that pass fake and attack the rim hard enough to dunk and not shoot, because he could have just caught it and shot that mid-range shot.
Absolutely.
These are all things that separate what he was last season and what I believe James Jones and Monty Williams believe a max center is in the modern NBA. Remarkable stuff, I'd say.
And on those plays, there were 2 plays tonight in the short roll where Ayton attacked off the dribble, and in both instances there was a tagger sliding over to cover him, but in these cases, like in the past, we would see DeAndre Ayton, as you say, just take that mid-range shot, settle, kind of get intimidated by the 6'4", 6'5", whatever the fuck it is, type of player standing in front of him. Tonight, he just pushed through. He pushed through the wall, as we all know he has the body and skills to be capable of doing, and he scored or he got to the free throw line. And if he commits to that mindset 3 or 4 or 5 times a game, coupled with his ability to pass the ball and see the court really well in the half court, find those corner shooters and cutters, you're talking about what a max center starts to look like in terms of offensive production. We know what Ayton's defensive production is at this point, I think. And by the way, he was locked in defensively tonight too. I thought he had a really good defensive game. But we're talking about offense, and it's a whole new level of trust that I've seen. Some of the passes from Devin Booker, especially to Ayton, just over the past 2 games, I was just, my jaw hit the floor just seeing him make that pass. I was like, they never give him it. They never give him the ball there.
Well, because they never lose it.
Right. No, like there's a reason for it. But now, even and I forget exactly what the situation was, but late in the game today, there was another situation like that where Booker gave it to Ayton. I forget the outcome of the play. I should have paid more attention or rewatch before we hit the mics. But it was 1 or 2 minutes left in a very close game, and I was like, I can't believe Ayton had 16 shots tonight. I was hoping Booker finished with 17. Ayton has never had a game this season. It's probably happened at some point, and I just didn't look it up. But at least this season, I know for sure he has not had a game where he led the Suns in field goal attempts. I was low-key rooting for that to be the case tonight, that he could get 1 or 2 more and surpass Booker, because 16 shot attempts for DeAndre Ayton in 33 minutes. he was close.
Mm-hmm. The important point to make for me is that the Suns really changed nothing about their offense. Absolutely nothing. The difference has always been, what can DeAndre Ayton do when he catches the ball 18 feet away from the basket? And coupled with that, because I think this is vital, because the short roll, which we talk about a lot on this podcast, is not the only thing. How much effort does he put off the ball in order to seal properly, to either beat guys down the floor, those types of things that matter. What they didn't have to do was call 10 different post-ups 10 times in a row, because it becomes incredibly predictable and it's difficult to get to the ball in there. They kept the offense the same. They trusted him in space. Were there some flubs? Yes. There's still there's a learning curve here. They just haven't given him the ball much. There was a double dribble. There was one seal where he lost the ball out of bounds. They ended up calling it off the Spurs anyway, but he didn't quite catch the ball there. Difficult to catch. I'm not going to blame him for that. The floater, like we talked about, isn't exactly what you would want out of him. I think he can find ways to attack that a little differently. But more than that, I think it has been a success because just in the Spurs game alone, they stopped trapping. Mm-hmm. Like, they stopped forcing the ball out of Chris Paul and Devin Booker's hands. They had to switch to switching. And like that type of thing, if you can force the defense to adjust in the strategy that's designed to give DeAndre Ayton the ball in space, that opens up everything else for everyone else. And I think over time, the rest of the players can get more used to that as well, and it could just turn into really great results.
It's huge. It's a level of defensive manipulation that all great coaches can only dream of having the personnel to actually make happen. And yeah, it's, you're referencing like that double dribble was really ugly. So, just evidence. It's not like go-to clutch offense for the Suns yet. Go-to clutch offense for the Suns is still going to be that Chris Paul right elbow jumper. It's going to be those Devin Booker ISOs, whatnot. But it's one more tool. It's one more tool to put in the belt. And there will be examples late in games this year if Ayton continues on this trajectory of he can take over a game for 1 or 2 or 3 possessions at a time, just doing that in a fourth quarter. I can't wait to see it.
I mean, if you start to combine the skills he already had last year, which is just a pick and roll finisher, able to catch lobs, occasional, turnaround, post up, the offensive rebounds with catching the ball in short rolls, finding shooters, attacking the basket, getting fouled, sealing. I mean, these are everything that you want in a modern center that's not like Embiid or Jokic, the ability to soak up 30 possessions in a game and find guys for 10 assists or whatever what Jokic can do. Like, very, very, very few players can do that. So what you're talking about is a different kind of player, which DeAndre Ayton just is a different kind of player than those guys. And if you combine all of that together, I mean, the Suns can be, it raises what I believe the ceiling of this team can be dramatically if we start to see this type of play from DeAndre Ayton regularly. And I know I'm being hyperbolic. I can't even describe. I'm incredibly excited by what I've seen from DeAndre Ayton. And yes, it's a bit hyperbolic. And yes, we need to see it in more games to believe that it's real. And against better teams, that's going to matter too.
But I don't think it's all that hyperbolic, honestly. Or at the very least, I don't think it's unreasonable that it elicits such a strong reaction out of us. When I saw the first one, short roll field goal attempt in that Nuggets game, I remember I tweeted, like, this is what I've been waiting for 3+ years. This is what we've been waiting for. We have had a podcast, Mike. We're not rookies anymore. We're veterans in this shit, you could say. And this podcast...
We've covered every DeAndre Ayton game.
We have covered every DeAndre Ayton game. This podcast is as old as DeAndre Ayton's career. Like, literally, give or take a week. And since that first summer league, that first season under Igor Kokoshkov, we've been talking about this shit. So, excuse us for being excited about it when we actually see some evidence that things are trending in a positive direction. But this is... Yeah, it's a huge ceiling raiser. It's like this is how you extend the ceiling of the Suns beyond Chris Paul's limited 2 or 3 year shelf life that he has remaining, because Chris Paul has been amazing this season. But what about after? You always have to think about the after. And if we discussed in the past, if neither Mikal Bridges nor DeAndre Ayton could unlock a higher offensive ceiling and you were going to pay both of them X amount of money to play next to Devin Booker. Well, in the post-Chris Paul era, there wasn't necessarily a lot of upside to see in that team. You could build a good team there with those three players. Could you build a contender just around Devin Booker and two really great role players who never quite figure it out offensively? No, you really can't. It's probably
you'd have to nail everything else, like literally everything.
Yeah, it's probably a perpetual first or second round exit, if we're being entirely honest of what that team looks like. But if those guys start to figure it out, and maybe we have some evidence now that Ayton is it's early days, but that he's figuring it out. That's how you become a dynasty. That's how you don't have to stay up at night worrying yourself sick about Chris Paul's vegan diet and if he's going to miss 5 or 10 games with a hamstring injury this year or whatever happens. I mean, you might still have to worry about that if you're really trying to win a championship this year. Once you get to the playoffs.
You have to worry about injuries. That's just part of the game.
Yeah, but really, the long-term health of this team, you have to take this stuff into account. Yeah. That's why it's so important.
And I want to give, once again, credit to the people setting the expectations for DeAndre Ayton, because I think this is vital. It's clear that he understands what is expected of him when it comes to developing into the player that they want him to be. And him just trying those things is a step in the right direction. I have not yet been this excited about DeAndre Ayton since maybe his rookie year. We've seen some of the things he's done since then. Offensively. Obviously, defensively is a different story. We've been around. You said this podcast is exactly as old as DeAndre Ayton's career in the NBA. Do you think that we have had similar trajectories in developments as DeAndre Ayton?
I think,
as far as our analysis goes,
I arguably think I've regressed. If we're being totally honest, I may have already burned out a long time ago. I think my peak content and my peak as an analyst, as a Twitterer, podcaster, whatever, might have been when I had 200 followers on Twitter.
There's other Suns players to talk about, but we're going to take questions in the second half of this episode, so I'm sure we'll get to those players. But I want to ask you about something specifically. The Suns fans took some heat from Nuggets fans after beating the Nuggets. At this point, they've beat over 30% of the league on this win streak, basically. So over a third of the league they've beat on this win streak alone. Do you think that the Suns are villains in the NBA currently? I mean, obviously Nuggets fans have a distaste for the Suns because they lost to the Suns in the playoffs in such a dramatic way. But do you think that other teams look at the Suns as some sort of villains, or do you think they're not there yet?
I don't think we're even close. Like, I think about a level of Warriors disdain that even I like the Warriors now. But when I was a teenager, a late teenager, when the Warriors dynasty first kind of started gelling, and I hated that team so much because they dicked us down every time. And yeah, their fans were really obnoxious. And so I think now, understanding that history, I would encourage Suns fans, we need to be a lot more obnoxious. I think so far we're I'm so serious too. I think so far we're only villains to niche weirdos like that Nuggets fan on Twitter. We need to be way worse.
Yeah.
Every additional win, here's what it is. Every additional win on the win streak right now, if you don't vilify yourselves online to that particular fan base, that's a wasted opportunity.
Right. I mean, yeah, it's funny because, like, Nuggets fans, they want us to care that they don't like us. But, like, why would we care? Why would we care at all about that? I don't understand why that would matter. And look, it's good. It's good. Yeah. That's what makes sports fun.
Not to dwell on, like, that one particular guy's train of thought for too long, but just, like, because it's something that not only he said, but other people are saying as well. Like, why is it a big deal that fans of a team that was dog shit for 10 years are now so excited, that they have a 13-game winning streak or however? Like, let people enjoy things. Who cares?
Yeah.
I don't get it. I don't get it, but neither
Here's
here
what
nor
I
there.
think it is. I think that the Nuggets in particular they have taken sort of the road more traveled to being a contender, if you will, in that they're a team that they drafted players, they made trades, they found guys, they got better.
They were spooky.
They made the playoffs. They lost in the first round or whatever. They made the playoffs. They got a little further. They made the playoffs. They got a little further. You know, they kept eating away at the playoffs to try and make it to the finals. They just haven't gotten there yet.
They would lose in the playoffs. The opposing team's fan base would go to their Reddit page and say, hey, you guys are going to be spooky next year. And then they got a little bit spookier every year, but never quite spooky enough.
No, never quite spooky enough. And then what they see in the Suns is a team that missed the playoffs 11 years in a row, sweep them in the NBA playoffs, and then make it to the NBA Finals the first time that Devin Booker has ever made the playoffs. And like, I understand the level of resentment in particular from Nuggets fans, because it's like they feel in a lot of ways that they took their hard knocks, and the Suns fan base in particular didn't. The reality is 11 years without playoffs, it sucks. It sucked. I have NBA League Pass now, and after 11 years of missing the playoffs with the Suns, a small part of me is addicted to watching bad basketball teams. Like, I want to watch the OKC Thunder sometimes.
They're great.
I want to watch the Detroit Pistons sometimes, because there's something, like, I learned to appreciate and learned to like when bad teams have one or two good players. I don't want to watch the Rockets, but
after that Pistons-Lakers game the other night, by the way, who wouldn't want to throw the Pistons on their League Pass watch list?
Yeah, exactly. It's just, you know, this, all I'll say is the Suns fans took our hard knocks. We just took them in a different way. And I do understand to some extent why Nuggets fans would resent Suns fans, because they feel like, well, we haven't suffered quite enough. Well, I'll just say this. We just haven't suffered in the same way. Playoff losses suck. You know what sucks worse? Finals losses. It's definitely worse. So, you know, I'll give us credit there. I agree with you. Just to wrap it up, I don't quite think that we're villains yet as far as the Suns team. And I think that I don't even think Suns fans have been bad as well. I agree with you. I think Suns fans have been fine.
Yeah, they've been fine. I mean, I think in a lot of corners of the internet, that people are still under the impression that we don't exist. I honestly think that. No, because seriously, do you remember what it was like on? I mean, we were on Reddit at the time, but I'm sure it was like this on any platform at the time. 2015, It felt like everyone was a Warriors fan.
Yeah.
How many more games in a row would the Suns have to win to feel something similar going on in Phoenix? I just don't think it's possible. I think we could win the next 30 in a row, and we would still feel like this small little tight-knit group, which in some ways is great. Ride and die with our guys, but, you know, I think it's just different. The one concession, by the way, I'll make to Nuggets fans, if you're a Nuggets fan and your mental health is in the gutter right now, you know, the Michael Porter Jr. news just came out. Don't know how long he's going to be out now. Like, I understand it's tough to be a Nuggets fan right now. They're struggling with health, and that's a totally valid, you know, excuse for the most part that they have for their team coming out of the gate struggling a little bit themselves. Just don't take it out on us. You know, that's all.
I think the problem is they're a butt of so many Suns jokes.
Yeah.
Suns fans jokes, so I understand why they're angry. Yeah, it's Michael Porter Jr., like, they said his season is in jeopardy. You read that story, it kind of feels like his career is in jeopardy. So I genuinely hope that he's okay and comes out of this. Nerve injuries and stuff like that, you don't want to mess around with that. That can mess up your whole life. So hopefully he's okay. But yeah, it is an interesting thing because, like, this season, I think there was an obvious villain in that it would have been the Nets because they have 2 MVPs and Kyrie Irving, and it, you know, it would have been easy to villainize them. And then, of course, one of their players is just refusing to play. And so it's difficult to even count that as the villainous team. So we are where we are, an NBA with no villain, except everyone seems to love when the Lakers lose. So I guess we can all bond in enjoying that. Let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to take some questions from you guys on Twitter after this Spurs game. So we'll be right back.
Listen, life's all about leveling up. Whether you're handling business on the field or kicking it in your zone, you like to celebrate with cigars that match the moment. That's why you should link up with Famous Cigars to bring you a wild deal. Right now, you can grab 8 premium cigars for just $8. You heard that right. 8 top-rated cigars at $1 a stick. Top quality brands like Oliva, Romeo y Julieta, and Davidoff. Handpicked just for you and worth over $80. Hit up famouscigars.com/cam and lock in this exclusive deal. While you're there, check out their insane selection of premium cigars, all shipped fresh and fast from their massive 20,000 square foot humidor. That's half a football field. Famous Cigars has been in the game since 1939 and still family owned. So celebrate every win with the folks at Famous. 8 cigars for $8. famouscigars.com/cam.
All right, welcome back. Thank you to everyone who asked us questions. I tweeted immediately after the game. We already had 36 questions. Obviously, we're not going to get to that, so I apologize. I think, Sam, we did a mailbag recently for our Patreon friends. I think we might have to do a mailbag for all these people that are asking questions here on Twitter. We haven't done an official one yet, so maybe sometime soon we could do another one. Let's start with this one. This is from Suns fan Brianna at Brie Denise 26. Thank you for the question, Brianna. She said, I'm sort of accepting the Shamet trade, which is a weird feeling with a question mark at the end of that one. I think it's a good time to sort of reassess how we feel about the Shamet trade. I think you and I have praised Landry Shamet a lot lately, but I just think he's just really starting to click within the offense in the last maybe like 5 or 6 games and has shown quite a bit defensively. I've been pretty impressed with Landry Shamet. I think you're all aboard the Shamet train at this point, right?
Yeah. Give me some credit, because for a long time people branded me as some sort of hater, and I feel like I never deserved that reputation just because. Okay, so here's the thing. At the time of the trade, I also, like Brianna, I'm imagining here, called into question the value of the trade. It wasn't so much giving up Javon Carter, who I like.
Right.
I always liked as a Sun, but just the first round pick and then giving him the $9 million a year for a guy you haven't even seen play yet. That sort of stuff. I was a little bit iffy on. What Shamet has shown us so far, just as a player, has been great. His three-point shooting skill set is unique. It's something that only he can provide to the Suns. His defense has been better than anticipated. He hasn't been a liability at all, from what I can tell. The playmaking, he's showing a little bit more of it game after game. He's not a perfect player by any means. I still don't know if he's like really a mid-level exception player, but I don't think it's bad value there. And also we know that contract is not fully guaranteed for all 4 years. So it's totally working out so far. And I think Suns fans should be all aboard with Landry Shamet at this point. I think with shooters in particular, guys who have the reputation for shooting and maybe not always doing so much else on offense, kind of get a raw deal with their relationship with fans. Because if you're a streaky guy, we've seen in the past, Shamet is one of those guys. He can be shooting 40% from deep, and yet you go online and everyone's calling for his head some nights. But it's like, if you're a 40% volume shooter, you're doing exactly what you're being paid to do.
100%.
Sometimes it's just not going to be your night. The other night against Denver wasn't his night. That's fine. Balanced it out today with 3 of 5 shooting against the Spurs.
Yeah, it's a similar thing to Cameron Johnson had his career night against the Nuggets, 1 for 6 tonight against the Spurs. That's the advantage of having more than one good player coming off your bench, which we'll talk about in a second. But with Landry Shamet, there's just things that he can do as a shooter that nobody else on the Suns can do, and I would argue that nobody else has been capable of doing for a long time. And, shout out to Langston Galloway, who did his best, but I think even Landry Shamet on a fast break, sprinting to the corner, catching it from a full sprint and popping from the corner and shooting. I said it online. I just don't think anyone else can do that for the Suns. I know nobody else can do that for the Suns, is what I should say. Maybe Ish Wainwright. I don't know. I haven't seen him play enough. But I know nobody who plays can do it for the Suns. It's not a Booker shot, right? It's not a Chris Paul shot. Chris Paul doesn't exactly have a fast three-point shot. It's really just Landry Shamet and adding some sort of dynamism like that to the offense matters so much, because it's not just that. If you do that once in a game, now the defense is going to panic when he's coming around the screen in the Spain pick and roll. By the way, I mean, this is, I guess, a testament to the defense that the Suns have been playing against for the last few games, but the amount of times that Landry Shamet can come off a Spain pick and roll wide open is insane to me. It's just completely insane. How do you let Landry Shamet come off a Spain pick and roll wide open at the top of the key? And that's not even the shot he's hitting a lot lately, but he's capable of it. It's really nice to see somebody like that, but I want to ask you about something different. Defensively, I have been personally surprised by what he's been capable of doing defensively so far this season. Is he like a great defender? No. Has he been a negative defender for the Suns so far? Not really, I don't think. And maybe that's partially his role coming off the bench. He doesn't have to guard a bunch of starters who are going to attack him over and over and over. You know, maybe we'll see something different once the Suns start actually matching up against some of the better teams in the NBA. But so far, I have no complaints about Landry Shamet defensively. What have you thought so far?
Yeah, look, as time goes on and the Suns start playing some of the truly elite contending type teams, you know, are there going to be situations if you're playing the Nets maybe next week, you know, and Landry Shamet is on the floor? Are the Nets going to try and get the Suns to switch? Because we know the Suns like to switch everything on the perimeter. Are the Nets going to try and get favorable matchups of Kevin Durant on Landry Shamet? And is that going to work out for Shamet? Maybe not. You know, he's not that level of defender. But
right.
Against 90% of the teams in the league, he seems to be doing just fine. You know, sometimes he screws up and then he gets right back on defense and makes hustle plays. We've seen him block a couple of guys this year in like really surprising situations. Honestly, his vertical is better than I expected, just in general.
Yeah.
So yeah. I wouldn't say he's been an issue on that.
Yeah, his leaping is like Devin Booker-esque in that he doesn't do it very much, but when he does, it's like, oh, okay, he can get a chase down blocker. Oh, okay, he dunked that? I didn't expect him to dunk that. Let's see, you got a question, right?
Yes, I want to continue on with the bench theme here. This is from Alex Fuentes, who asked, well, it's not really a question, but he just said, would like for us to talk about bench synergy with specifically Abdul Nader out/injured. Yeah. And I know this is something that you were talking about at the beginning of this game, how it's affected the rotations. Do you want to talk about that?
Well, I'll first say that I forgot he was out. I just thought he was out of the rotation, which I was giving Monty credit for. But basically, the last two games, we've seen essentially a 9-man rotation for the Suns instead of the typical 10-man rotation, which we saw before that. And that's resulted in a couple of things. But one of the things I've liked about it is that we've seen bench with Mikal Bridges, which, by the way, is something that you and I asked for in our Mikal Bridges internal development episode that we did before the season. The idea being Mikal Bridges essentially can be that sort of linchpin offensively. You can run plays for him, and if the defense reacts to Mikal Bridges, you can see the rest of the offense flow around that. That hasn't quite been the case so far. He's more of a defensive linchpin. What we've seen instead of that is the offense sort of revolving around a combination of Cameron Payne and Landry Shamet mostly. But I have personally really enjoyed this 9-man rotation. I understand it's an 82-game season. Monty Williams doesn't want to play a 9-man rotation for the entire season. He doesn't want to overplay certain guys as far as minutes goes. I would not be mad, even knowing that, if they still kept it as a 9-man rotation after Abdul Nader comes back from this injury. It just looks good to me. What have you thought?
I would not be surprised. Now, does it give me pause about thinking again about this team and where it really stands at the trade deadline with its depth chart and a depth chart of just Mikal Bridges, Jay Crowder, Cam Johnson, the wing positions? Yeah, I do have to think about that. But if you're just trying to get the best out of the Suns on a game-to-game basis, yeah, you gave Nader a 15-game sample, right? And hasn't really worked out. So I think this is working. Stick with what works. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, and people are asking about the trade deadline already, and that's a fair thing to ask about. You know, with Kaminsky out, Nader out, who knows how long each of them is going to be out. I'm not prepared to talk about that. I will talk about it in the future. One thing I'll remind people of: the Suns don't have their pick in this coming offseason. It's included as part of the Chris Paul trade. It's going to the OKC Thunder.
as long as the Suns make the playoffs, which they will. So if you're thinking about trades, that does make it more difficult. They can't necessarily trade 2 picks in a row. There's different wording they can put on a pick if they want to trade it. But as far as assets goes, it's going to take some research, I'll say that, to figure out some options at the trade deadline. By the way, everyone asks about the trade deadline, and then everyone hates when we talk about it because nobody likes hearing about
that's very true.
Fake trades, even though we find it fun and it's mostly not serious. I'm going to actually go ahead.
No, especially this year, like if we're kind of unanimously deciding that Jalen Smith has no trade value,
yeah,
then any trades we come up with this year, you have to start making difficult decisions. You know, the types of guys on the Suns who are available for $5 to $10 million, they're all kind of valuable in the, you know, they're guys like Cam Payne, Cam Johnson, Jay Crowder. Darius Saric is injured, so he also has no value. But like, you know, it would be difficult to really maneuver in a way. The thing I think Suns fans would like is just Jalen Smith and picks. But I don't know if anyone would take that.
When the Suns did not pick up Jalen Smith's option, I tweeted essentially saying what I'm guessing happened is the Suns tried to trade Jalen Smith. They couldn't find a trade for him, so they decided that the open roster spot and the ability to cut him this year if they need to was more valuable than picking up his option for next year since they couldn't trade him. And then I heard from somebody who is a reporter. I'm not. And they messaged me and said, yes, the Suns were trying to trade Jalen Smith and could not find a suitor. So, you know, take that for what you will. I don't know if it's necessarily true, but I do trust this person much more than most. I'm going to change it up on you. We were going to read a different question, but I'm going to read something else. This is from Calvino. He said, have the Suns had a true test during this win streak? This season, the most notable wins are against the Lakers, Hawks, and maybe the Trailblazers. Other than that, the schedule's been pretty weak to start. And I agree with him.
Yeah, he's right.
Bring up the schedule now. I think you can count. I know the Cavs are the Cavs, but the Cavs at the time when the Suns beat them were playing really, really well, and you know, winning against them mattered too. But it's not exactly something to hang your hat on. It's just they were playing very well at the time. But if we're gonna go, I'm gonna go through them right now. This is the entire 13-game win streak. Cleveland, a good team. New Orleans, terrible. Houston, terrible. Atlanta, good. Sacramento, sort of in the middle. They're not terrible, but they're not good either. They did just fire their coach after losing like 6 in a row. So yeah. Portland, much better lately, and that's a good win.
Narrowly good. Yeah.
Yeah. Memphis, up and down, sort of in the middle. Not terrible, not good. Houston, terrible. Minnesota. Actually, Minnesota's been playing better than I expected lately, but still not a good team. Dallas, twice in a row without Luka Doncic, not a test. Denver, without their 3 best players, not a test. San Antonio, after a players-only meeting, might have been one of the bigger tests so far because they were desperate to win this game and they still could not. So I actually very much agree that they have not yet really been tested. Cleveland, Portland in the win streak alone, Los Angeles before that. Outside of that, they're beating teams that they're supposed to. You know, teams lose to teams that they're supposed to beat all the time. That happens all the time. So beating teams that you're supposed to, really only 2 teams are doing that regularly this season, and that's the Warriors and the Suns. A 13-game win streak, insanely impressive still.
Sure.
I cannot wait. For the next 3 games, I think are actually a pretty big test. Cleveland, New York, Brooklyn. New York and Brooklyn back to back. But what do you think?
I would agree with that. The tests are coming up. The Cleveland is pretty good. The Knicks are pretty good. They've been up and down. If the Suns are still riding it into that Brooklyn game, that is going to be fun. And then beyond that, obviously you've got the Golden State games. But yeah, that's the sort of stuff we're talking about. I mean, look, if you go to any social media comment section right now and look at what they're saying about the Suns' 13-game win streak, they're going to bring up kind of these obvious complaints. You know, don't pay too much attention to it. If it was so easy to rattle off 13 in a row, then their dog shit franchise that they support would have done it by now. So, you know, but there's a reason that they haven't. So that's all I would say about that. However, it's also factually true. The Suns have not played the best teams in the NBA by any stretch during this stretch. So we'll see.
Yeah. It's teams. The NBA is not this like incredibly predictable league where you can just predict who's going to win every game just based on this team is better than that team, therefore they will win. if that was the case, first of all, it'd be really boring. Second of all, everyone would win all of their bets. The casinos would run out of money because it's just not that. It's a very unpredictable league, and 13 in a row it's pretty crazy. I'm looking forward to them being tested. If they win Cleveland, New York, Brooklyn, then there'll be 16 games in a row against Golden State. I believe to tie the longest win streak in Suns history at 17 could be against Golden State on TNT Tuesday, November 30th. Could be one of the biggest games, regular season games in Suns history. And they play the Warriors again on December 3rd and then again on Christmas, which, by the way, the NBA nailed that Christmas Day game.
Yeah.
Suns versus Warriors. That's going to be fascinating.
What do you know what
probably
time?
the most interesting game that day.
Is that the last time slot? That's probably
It's like 8:30 Eastern, I think.
Okay, that's not too bad.
Yeah.
It's
a later game.
I got to think about those things now, unfortunately.
Yeah.
My next question. So
Yes.
I'm kind of pooling this, actually. I'm calling an audible here and pooling this because a few different people talked about something related to this. And I figured we should cover it because it's also news. Frank Kaminsky is out now with a knee. What is it? A stress reaction in his knee.
Yeah. Which, who knows what that is?
Well, right. And so as a result, I have people asking here about bigs in the kind of trade / buyout / free agency market, but there are also people asking about Jay Crowder's viability as a small ball five. I have people asking about how do we get Torrey Craig back. I think that's a very natural reaction as well. But all generally having to do with this idea of if Frank Kaminsky is out long term, what is the value loss in that? And I think it's pretty substantial. But what are your thoughts?
That is massive for depth reasons. Jalen Smith is unplayable on a good team right now. I'm sorry for those who like Jalen Smith. For those who like Jalen Smith, I'll ask you why. What have you seen? I guess I haven't seen the same thing. He's just unplayable right now. So if something happens to JaVale, if God forbid, or something happens to DeAndre Ayton, and they miss extended time, you just don't have a guy to be that backup at this point. You need a third stringer. James Jones said it before the season, 3x5, all 5 positions, 3 guys deep. They don't have that currently. They did with Frank, and they need to fix that. Dario Saric could come back this year. That's a possibility. If Frank's out for the whole year, you could have Dario back sometime next year. I wouldn't count on that, and who knows if he's going to be good coming off an injury. That is something that could happen, but in the meantime, I think you need to do something. Jalen Smith not being signed next year means that they could technically cut him right now and open up a roster spot and try and sign somebody off the scrap heap. I've looked at that. I'm not sure if you have, Sam. There's no good names as far as unsigned. Yeah. There's no big names that stick out as far as unsigned free agents. I looked at Aaron Baines, and then I remembered he had a neck injury that keeps him out for the full year, because that would be perfect, really, if you could just bring Baines back, but he's out for the full year. And then there's a bunch of guys that are probably retiring. I think Tolliver's not on the team currently, Anthony Tolliver. He's kind of old.
That doesn't excite
and hasn't
me.
done much. Yeah, but it's just one of those names, like that's where you get to when you start looking at this sort of end of the bench free agent at this point of the season. So you look at the Suns making a good trade at this point, and that could happen. I'm not prepared to throw some names out there, but they're gonna have to do something soon.
Just to be clear, so you're not high on like Jay Crowder's ability to slide up to the 5 or something. I'm not.
I would
personally.
prefer that to Jalen Smith playing minutes, especially against good teams.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you could do it you could do it against the Warriors to match up with their Draymond lineup, sure, whatever.
You could try Chandler Hutchinson at center. He's not really a center.
Could try Ish Wainwright at center.
He's got the shoulders.
So that's another 6'7", maybe 6'6". That's another thing that happened this week.
Yeah, he played.
We were asking for it a few days ago, and then he actually played. He got a bucket too.
Yeah. 6'5", by the way.
6'5".
That'd be a fascinating center to see him play at center. Would be really interesting. I think Thon Maker is like playing for like a European team. You can get somebody like that. It's not that exciting.
Yeah, some of those guys you could get for a buyout. Okay, now you're gonna make me search up a list.
It's just not exciting. You're not going to get super excited by this list.
I'm just going to throw a bunch of bullshit names out at you now, but keep talking in the meantime.
Yeah, maybe they can find somebody in the G League, a center that's playing really well. Chris Paul makes guys look better than they are as far as at the center position. It's not a coincidence that JaVale McGee's having essentially his best offensive season that he's had in a long time. Playing with Chris Paul is not a coincidence. So if you can find a guy that's just capable of catching lobs and playing drop defense in the G League, maybe you can get him on the roster. I'm not sure if that's going to be better than Jalen Smith, but it probably will be, as far as just a very limited role center that could do those two things. But yeah, you see anything you like there?
This is not a totally updated list, I think. I saw Ed Davis, which I got excited for a second, but then it turns out he signed with Cleveland, which I didn't even know.
I didn't know that either.
Is Biyombo playing for anyone right now? These are not good names. These are not good names.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's just not, of course it's not exciting, right? They're not in the NBA currently.
Bismack Biyombo started 36 games for the Hornets last year and is a free agent.
You think about a few years ago, there were good names. Like Taj Gibson was an unsigned free agent at one time. Kind of insane now to think about. I think he's making $10 million this year. Guys can play their way back into the NBA. There's no guys really like that at the center position that you think, wow, maybe he could have a resurgence. I don't see anyone like that.
Well, there's one guy I'm looking at here whose name you might know as DeMarcus Cousins, but
I saw that too. DeMarcus Cousins, Marc Gasol.
He's had his fair share of resurgence attempts at this point, and I don't think it's happening. Yeah. I don't think his body is going to allow that.
Mm-hmm. And I don't think the locker room wants that. DeMarcus Cousins and Chris Paul hate each other.
That's a great point that I forgot about, actually. Kind of comically so. Yeah, we'll let that one go. All right.
Yeah, I don't see anything there. All right. Anything else to help up all those questions there?
I think that's about it for this time.
We'll find some fake trades at some point.
I feel bad for all of you people with fake trades. Don't worry, we'll have plenty of those episodes in the future.
All right. This is from Richard W. Griswold. I wonder if that's his real name. Griswold is the name from Christmas Vacation. But anyway. The Suns are a juggernaut, winners of now 13 straight games. What kind of a PR nightmare would it be for the NBA commissioner Adam Silver to present the Larry O'Brien championship trophy to Robert Sarver? If Sarver survives, who gets Nancy Kerrigan to ensure it doesn't happen? He's essentially bringing up the point that, and I wanted to bring this up, by the way, because we haven't yet talked about the Robert Sarver investigation in a while. No news to report on the Robert Sarver investigation at this point. But I would say this: if the Suns are in contention to be a title favorite or something like that, like if it's close to the end of the year and maybe the Warriors drop off, the Suns are clearly one of the best teams in the NBA, which they are right now, but even more of a favorite. I'd say the NBA will do everything in their power to try and finish that investigation before the playoffs start. And I would doubt that it takes longer than once we're into the playoffs here, but I really have no way to read this situation, figure out how fast it could go. That would be a nightmare. I agree with that. That would be a nightmare.
Well, it just depends on the outcome of the investigation. If the investigation concludes and they find Sarver is not at fault and he remains owner of the Suns and whatever, then I guess it's not a PR nightmare in that case. It might be a PR nightmare. It
still kind of is.
It's right? A nightmare for us. It would not be a nightmare for the NBA because they would have made their decision. So if they make the other decision that, he is culpable, then hopefully they get him out of there before, or I imagine the Suns would work very hard and very fast to get him out of there before the playoffs, before a finals run for sure. Who knows?
I think so too. I think
knows?
A lot of it will probably depend on what they're hearing right now in the investigation. The last thing that we saw was that the employees that work for the Suns right now, and probably previous employees as well, have been granted confidentiality. They have the ability to report what happened at their workplace without it being known who it was and what they said. The NBA really is the only people that need to know that. So we'll see what comes out of that. Do you have any other questions that you'd like to answer before we go?
No, to the 40,000 of you who we didn't answer this time, I'm sorry. We'll do a mailbag episode for everyone pretty soon.
Yeah, we appreciate you guys. We appreciate the questions. We'll be back with a Patreon episode relatively soon. New stuff coming soon with the Patreon. If you haven't signed up, check it out. Patreon.com/thetimeline.
December's going to be a big month. It's going to be an exciting month. Yeah.
In the next few weeks, we have some announcements coming, so stay tuned, and we'll be talking about that soon, but we appreciate you guys, and we will be back soon.
For over a century, Johnny Walker has shared its bold spirit with the game of golf. Now, crafted with Devereaux Golf, Johnny Walker introduces the Johnny Walker Blue Label-inspired Sunday Golf Bag, elevating the game with sleek design, Blue Label hues, and refined gold accents. Celebrate your hole-in-one with a premium Sunday bag crafted by Devereaux Golf. Submit proof of your achievement to JohnnyWalker.com/blue-in-1. Please drink responsibly.